Good evening to you. Thank you for being here with us on Telesurs from the South. I'm Regan Devines. We begin with this evening's headlines. Argentina's new right-wing government is sworn in. The new president says they've got a new vision of politics. Venezuela's right-wing opposition threatens to dismantle state-run companies. And dozens of civilians die in a Taliban attack in Afghanistan. The details on these stories and more right now. The newly elected Argentinian President Mauricio Macri was sworn in some hours ago and is now the new head of state. Macri addressed Congress during the ceremony and spoke about several issues such as corruption and drug trafficking. The speech of the newly sworn-in president was brief, lasting only 27 minutes.
I take this opportunity to give a message to our brothers of Latin America and of the world. We have a new vision of politics. We are the sons of our time, and we try to understand you without prejudices. We believe in unity and cooperation of Latin America and the world.
Venezuelans across the country are responding to President Nicolás Maduro's call for debate and analysis after the opposition won a supermajority in this week's elections. Almost 1,000 members of the Socialist Alliance, the Great Patriotic Pole, have met in Caracas to discuss ways to move the revolution forward. Telesurs' Isabel Finbo was there to find out more.
I'm here now at the Hotel Alba Caracas, where around 980 delegates from the Gran Polo Patriótico are coming here to debate and reflect on the results from the last election. Now, I'm joined by one of the delegates, who is Josmar Bona, who is going to tell me what they hope to achieve in this debate.
Bueno, estamos aquí realizando esta gran asamblea de camaradas.
We are here doing this great assembly of comrades and fellow citizens of all kinds, in general, from the Great Patriotic Pole, principally to do an analysis of what was the electoral day last December 6th, and specifically to be clear on how it failed. Of course, the great economic war that the opposition attacked us with, and we'll try to find the way to overcome those problems and apply the 3 R's that Chávez used to tell us. These are the rectification and, above all and principally, the renewed push from our party and all our comrades that continue permanently fighting for the interest of our people in the country.
So there we have, the aim of this today is analysis, reflection and re-energizing the movement to move forward from the election which they lost last Sunday. I'm Isabel Finbo, Telesur in Caracas.
An opposition Venezuelan mayor has called on lawmakers from the Democratic Unity Roundtable MUD to dismantle the nation's state-owned electricity and water companies. Gerardo Blyde, the mayor of Baruta, the city within the Metropolitan District of Caracas, called the electricity company Carpoelec a, quote, atrocious state-run company that, quote, only exists to drain the money from Venezuelans. Carpoelec was nationalized back in 2007 following a tendency of several Latin American countries to nationalize projects in the areas of water, electricity, health, education, telecommunications and other public services. According to the World Bank, however, 100% of Venezuela's population now have access to electricity. In Brazil's capital, Brasilia, dozens of people demonstrated inside the Congress to protest against the efforts to impeach President Dilma Rousseff. The Supreme Court freezed the process for a week in response to an appeal from Rousseff's allies that the opposition had illegally insisted on secret votes instead of the usual open votes, and that they had picked who would sit on the Congressional Commission. Nationwide opposition rallies are planned for Sunday, while on Tuesday Rousseff's supporters marched in central Rio de Janeiro, which will host the 2016 Olympics. Protesters say that they fear social assistance and democracy are at risk if the opposition is successful in removing Rousseff from office.
We couldn't demonstrate within the lower house out of respect for the hearing, so we did demonstrate when we stepped out into the green room of the Congress. We didn't respect any lawmaker there. We demonstrated because democracy is threatened in Brazil. We are against the impeachment. We are in favor of democracy and public policy.
Brazil's Vice President Michel Temer seems to have signed an armistice with Rousseff after he penned a letter to her saying that he didn't trust her. After the two met on Wednesday night, he said that they both seek a beneficial and fruitful relationship. According to Globo TV, Rousseff and Temer decided that the issue of impeachment would not come up at their future meetings, that Temer would not have to make public statements supporting the government, and that he would not work toward her impeachment. And on Rio's Copacabana Beach, an NGO that usually organizes protests against police cruelty has performed a mock funeral to draw attention on police deaths in the city. A blood-stained police uniform hanging from a wooden cross accompanied 61 pictures of the 61 police officers killed this year. 40 of them were executed outside working hours. Rio's police officers often complain about the lack of appropriate gear in their frequent gun battles against the city's heavily armed drug gangs.
Today is the Universal Human Rights Day, and we brought this message to Copacabana Beach, reading, "Human rights doesn't take sides. We must not exclude the police officers, who especially in the city, with massive bloodshed like this one, have their rights constantly violated by the state."
I'm sad because my father once came to a protest like this, and I never imagined that one day I would come to a protest where he is the victim and cry for my father's death. I'm crying and I still have no answers, because our government does nothing and the population is even worse. My father used to go to the slums without a bulletproof vest and carrying a regular gun while drug traffickers had machine guns.
The world's first dengue vaccine has been approved in Mexico, raising hopes that it could prevent over 100 annual deaths in that country and eventually maybe millions around the world. 400 million people are infected with dengue every year. 200,000 die by its deadliest form, the dengue hemorrhagic fever. The new vaccine could immunize 93% of people between 9 and 45 years of age, and there are hopes that it will be more effective with the type of dengue fever that causes the highest mortality. It's been tested on 40,000 people from 15 countries thus far. Even though the illness was once considered a disease of the tropics, globalization and climate change are helping it to move into more temperate zones, and it is now endemic in more than 100 countries. Mothers of Central Americans disappeared in Mexico have gathered before the Senate to request to speak to Mexican senators. The caravan includes women from El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala and Nicaragua, whose children and relatives went missing in transit through Mexico while attempting to migrate to the United States. They marched on Wednesday to the capital's Zocalo Square and will pass through 7 Mexican states. In the Mexican border with the US, Tijuana Airport has become one of the first in the world to span 2 countries. A new terminal was unveiled on Wednesday in San Diego that is connected to the airport via a pedestrian cross-border bridge, nearly 120 meters long. This new crossing is free until December 18th. After that date, passengers will be charged $18 to use it. St. Vincent and the Grenadines' ruling Unity Labour Party, or ULP, led by Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, has retained power over the country's general elections. The ULP's victory was a slim one as it won 8 seats, while the opposition New Democratic Party gained 7 seats. However, the ULP has called for a recount in 2 constituencies, which were won by the NDP. And in Haiti, citizens continue to protest what they think were fraudulent elections. The protest started last month when the Provisional Electoral Council announced the winners of the October 25th first round. They accused President Michel Martelly's party of tampering ballots to benefit Jovenel Moise, who will face Jude Celestin in the runoff on December 27th. After an attack on a market bazaar and a school near Kandahar airport began in Afghanistan on Tuesday, 50 people have been killed. The country's defense ministry said that figure includes 38 civilians, 10 Afghan National Army soldiers and 2 policemen. 35 others have been injured. Reports are that the attack occurred hours after a video entitled "Message to Obama" was posted online, which warned that US troops would not be safe in Afghanistan. At least 9 of the attackers were killed. The Taliban claimed responsibility for the incident. Tunisia's National Dialogue Quartet collected their Nobel Peace Prize at a ceremony in Norway. During their acceptance speech, they took the opportunity to make reference to the creation of a Palestinian state to quell the violence in the region. Secretary General of the Tunisian General Labour Union, Hussein Abbasi, also weighed in on the topic. Abbasi said that Palestinians must be given the right to self-determination in their own territory to build their independent state themselves.
The diploma reminds us all of our obligation to the millions of children and young people who, while we are gathered here today, feel as if they are groping in the dark with no hope or faith in the future. May these young people have the blindfold removed from their eyes and see a brighter future, a future in peace and freedom.
Today we need to accelerate the elimination of hotspots all over the world, particularly the resolution of the Palestinian issue, giving the Palestinian people the right to self-determination in their territory and to build their independent state.
It was a march for peace by Muslims and Christians in Palestine this week in the West Bank. Hundreds moved as one, demanding that the ongoing violent acts engaged between Palestinians and Israelis come to an end. However, despite the violence, the marchers expressed hope.
Country where the Christ was born, this is the land of peace. So hopefully peace will come to this area and we could celebrate like any others and bring the happiness to our kids.
Meanwhile, in Gaza, Hamas members paid tribute to its fighters by erecting memorials in main squares. More on this story with Noha Razim.
Hamas-affiliated armed movement, the Izz al-Din al-Qassam Brigades, has erected several memorials in the main squares in Gaza City, aiming to mark their battles with the Israeli armed forces. In March 2014, Hamas armed wing unveiled a rocket-shaped statue at the Al-Jala Square, Western Gaza City, showcasing its capacity to strike Israel. M75 rockets fired from Gaza during the 2012 war struck areas 75 kilometers inside the perimeter around Tel Aviv and Jerusalem.
These memorials are symbols of our Palestinian cause. This rocket-shaped model reminds us that it struck the heart of Tel Aviv during the war. The tank reminds us that we once destroyed Amekava and abducted Israeli soldiers from it. Each memorial has a memory in our hearts. When I see these memorials, I feel very proud of the victories of our resistance.
In another part of Gaza City, the Commandos Memorial was put up at Gaza Port in August 2015. It simulates one of Al-Qassam Naval Commandos units, which infiltrated from the sea into Israel's Zakim Navy base northern Gaza on the first day of the 2014 summer war, causing deaths among Israelis. Last but not least, a Merkava tank-shaped memorial was erected at Maidan Palestine Square, eastern Gaza City last July. An iron chained arm comes out through its middle, with the name of the Israeli soldier Shaul Aron, who is in Hamas captivity, carved on it. Hamas armed wing have repeatedly destroyed several Merkava tanks in Israeli ground incursions during the 2014 summer war against the Gaza Strip. Noha Razim, Telesu TV, Gaza.
The Caribbean community, CARICOM, has expressed concern at the draft document presented at the COP21 Climate Change Summit in Paris this week. Members say the draft does not take into account small island and low-lying developing states. Delegates representing CARICOM also stressed that a 2 degrees Celsius limit should be reduced to 1.5 degrees. They added that the structured expert dialogue has established that 2 degrees Celsius is too high. Member countries have, however, welcomed the provision in the draft that speaks to renewals of mitigation commitments every 5 years.
La parole, Antigua et Barbuda et Bolivie. Donc, je donne la parole à Antigua et Barbuda.
Beijing has lifted the red alert that was imposed earlier this week in response to a thick smog that had covered the city for days. Other measures had been limiting private vehicles on the streets by half, ordering factories to close and recommending that some schools allow students to remain home. Because of the smog, harmful microscopic particles that penetrate deep into the lungs had reached well over 600 micrograms per cubic meter last week. The measures have helped reduce that figure to as low as 15 micrograms per cubic meter, which is well below the World Health Organization's recommended maximum exposure of 25 micrograms per cubic meter. Nancy Pelosi, the minority leader of the United States House of Representatives, is adding her voice to the ongoing gun control debate. She says that silence in the Senate must not continue. Democratic members of the House continue to advocate that universal background checks, bans on assault weapons, and aggressive enforcement against unlawful gun dealers are wise moves to constitute gun control reforms that can potentially place a dent in the growing trend of mass shootings in the United States. However, gun rights activists believe that more guns is the solution, but that by arming the public, the perpetrators of mass shootings can be stopped by regular citizens before they do any damage. Here now is a brief look at other news stories around the world.
Uda Tarabin, an Arab Israeli, has been released from an Egyptian prison where he had spent the last 15 years under accusations of spying. Tarabin has always denied the charges and had previously accused Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of not intervening because of his religion. Germany's Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier said that there is no other alternative but for all of Europe to unite in the face of the refugee crisis. The bloc has been at ends on exactly how to cope with some Eastern European nations raising literal walls and barriers. About 1 million refugees are expected to flock to the region this year alone. And the 10th Ministerial Conference of the World Trade Organization is set to take place in Nairobi, Kenya from the 15th to the 18th of December. Among the topics for discussion are agriculture, export subsidies and food security in the region. Member countries will also discuss whether future talks will continue under Doha, which deals with trade negotiations among WTO member countries.
Well, I think what does it mean about Africa, right? That we are growing, that we are taking our responsibilities seriously, that we feel very strongly about the multilateral trading system, that in fact we want to be part of it, an integral part of it, and that we will work very, very hard to make sure that happens.
French Real Madrid striker Karim Benzema has been suspended from the France team for his involvement in a blackmail case against his teammate Mathieu Valbuena. Benzema has been charged with complicity in the attempt to blackmail 31-year-old Olympic Lyonnais forward Valbuena. Valbuena said that 6 images of himself were on a portable telephone that was stolen. The French Federation president said that the charges against Benzema have to be dropped or that reconciliation must happen between the two footballers. If neither happens, Benzema will not be allowed to play when the next internationals are held in March 2016. Benzema could also miss the Euro 2016 competition in June and July in France.
Today, Benzema is no longer eligible for selection. I know you'll say, but it's Christmas, so it's easy. There are no matches. There are no matches, but there will be in March. If there's no change in March, he will not play. You can say, but then there's the Euro, and you like this player. That will break your heart. Well, if that situation doesn't change, he cannot play in June, July.
And to close this evening, Uruguay's National Ballet will celebrate its 80th anniversary with Kenneth Macmillan's ballet choreography of Romeo and Juliet. The show has already premiered and will be on until December 23rd. It will feature the talents of 90 dancers. Director Julio Boca said that only a few companies in the world have the chance to use the choreography of Kenneth Macmillan. There is more on these and other stories. Please feel free to join us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter for more, and for extended coverage of developing stories, you can access our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Regan Levine. Have a great evening. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.